Because it's my last meeting.
I thought you said you were going to be here.
I'll be here. I'll be gone Washington once.
All right, well, we have to make a big deal of it. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our September move to October LEPC meeting. My name's Michael Parr. I'm the Hazardous Materials Assistant for the LEPC. So I'm kind of the assistant to the chief and the deputy. Just before we start, we are recording this, so it will be available for the public on YouTube. It's not live presented, but it will be posted for YouTube. So if you have any comments, questions, we have handhelds we can pass around so everything, all the audio gets captured, okay? So our agenda is pretty typical for today. We'll do from introductions, old business, tier 2 reporting, incident response review, 21E site assessments, hazardous mitigation plan update, and a quick training / review on what the comprehensive emergency management plan offers. And then if anyone has any other business, they're welcome to share it at the end. So as I said, I'm Michael Parr. I have the chief here, and this is, I believe, going to be his last LEPC meeting before his impending retirement. So happy to throw him under the bus.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
So I've been participating in LEPC meetings for way too long, between here and my time up in New Hampshire. But it's great to see you all here. Mike's done an incredible job getting us up and going with these and providing information. It's really important that we get our community partners in here to have these discussions and to let you know what's going on and where we are and what's happening. So I want to thank you all for being here, and I'm going to turn it back to Mike, and the deputy's back here too. He can stand up because he'll be taking over doing all the LEPCs after I'm gone. So. No, he's back there. What? Me? Hi. Go ahead, Michael.
So maybe we could just go around the room and just introduce who we are, and we can pass the mic around through the
Who you are and who you're with.
Yeah.
My name is Cynthia Martelli. I'm with CM Dart.
Hi, my name is Esra Duman. I am the site head for the Sanofi site in Northborough.
Hi, I'm Pete Asfan. I'm the senior facilities lead at Northborough, Sanofi.
Scott Charpentier, Public Works Director.
Diane Wackel, Assistant Town Administrator.
John Rappa, Tellison and Company, Certified Business Continuity Planner, also Chair of the Financial Planning Committee.
Good morning, Kevin Filchak, State Emergency Management.
Mike Soropilia, EHS Department at Saint-Gobain.
Good morning, John Hosapian, EHS Manager at Saint-Gobain.
Good morning, Anthony Cheyenne from Nucor Packaging on Lyman Street in Northborough.
Mary Ellen Duggan, Nurse Leader, School District.
Jonathan Brodka, Plant Manager at Steris.
Dudley Darling, Vice President, Juniper Hill Golf Course.
Bob Federico, Building Inspector, Town of Northborough.
Neil Spazey, Deputy Fire Chief, Northborough.
Demo Sergeant Freitas, Lieutenant, Northborough Police. Jason Bernetti, IMDC Data Center.
Thank you.
You see that we have all of our scary places here, so thanks for being here. It's funny, I tell people that I'm not worried about the sites that have chemicals because they know what they're doing, they study, they know, they talk to us, where I'm worried about what's going up and down the road in the UPS truck. That's what scares the heck out of me, and what's being transported in all the Amazon trucks. So you can have a lot of little stuff in those things. That's what scares me. You guys all have your stuff together. We all talk, we all communicate, so that's terrific, but those little things scare me, so.
So our only old business is essentially reviewing and approving the meeting minutes from March. So these were sent out by email. If anyone has any comments or questions, things they'd like to change, now would be the time. Otherwise, we can entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Motion to approve and seconded. All in favor? Any other discussion on that?
No.
Yes, sir? All in favor of approving the minutes as posted?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, so moved. So our Tier 2 reporting hasn't changed. We didn't get anything else in since March. So essentially what you saw at our last meeting is what we had. I think we had one drop-off last meeting due to, one company left town. So otherwise, everything's been very stable with this over the years that I've been here. Our incident response review since March. So we've had 43 incidents involving hazardous materials or, the potential for hazardous materials. So you see that particularly with like this carbon monoxide activations and whatnot. We're definitely in the heating season now, so that's a really important thing to remind the public about, is making sure you have working carbon monoxide alarms in your home, along with the smoke alarms. But the carbon monoxide, we can't see it, taste it. And it's definitely something that can poison you and kill you if you don't know it's there. So we want to make sure that's in the homes, protecting people. We have a couple incident reviews that we can go over about a couple highlighted incidents. You can see there's no particular time of day that these are happening. So they're all pretty evenly spread out, day, night, evening. And this would be our first incident review. Do you want to handle it?
Yeah, you can take it to the next slide, or is it?
This is the slide, yeah.
Okay. So this was an interesting call. This was a truck that was there to do tree work, and they drove over top of the buried LP tank. That's a problem, right? And they were on top of the buried LP tank when we got there. So thank goodness they didn't keep driving, right? Because that could have been troublesome. So what we did is we isolated the area. We started doing monitoring. The problem with where the truck was located, because the truck was located on top of the tank, we don't know if there's any ignition sources still in that truck, right? That's somewhat concerning. We did pull a line, 1 3/4 line for precaution. We didn't use it, but we did pull it. And then we set up a water supply. One of the concerns with this is the proximity to the house, because the house is really where all of our ignition points are going to be in this. And what does LP do as opposed to gas? LP hugs the ground, right? So that's more of a concern. And where's the ignition points in the house? In the basement, where the gas heater is, right? So that's always our concern, which is why the captain on duty that day took a very aggressive stance. They actually went in and they shut all the breakers off in the house to stop and shut everything down completely to eliminate those, to reduce those potential points of ignition. But you're always afraid you're going to miss that one. You guys all know what happened in Lawrence several years ago when they had that backfeed of the gas, right? And they thought some of the places were shut down, and then next thing they know, the place is burning down. So that's very, very concerning. There is a 1,000-gallon underground tank, which was, it's important. It was last filled in February 25, and to full with 481 gallons. So what we have to do sometimes is figure out what the consumption rates are to figure out how much is in there, especially with this one, because the damage, there was no gauge left, right? So it makes it a little bit more difficult to figure out what's left in that tank. Are we going to let it leak off? Are we going to call in the provider, which we always call in the provider? Are they going to transfer it to something else? We figured out that there was about 250 gallons remaining in that tank. So we donned our PPE, went in, the technician arrived, and we were able to plug the leak. So we were able to, then once the leak was plugged, we were sure it was cleared off. We were then able to move the truck out of the way. These aren't unusual things for us to get. Just like digging up, and people don't realize digging up a natural gas line is not an unusual event for us. We had the one at the construction site where the new fire station is. I think I talked about that at the last meeting. It's not an unusual thing for us to get. The idea is to keep your cool, respond, and use your logic as you're going through. So, Michael, is that any questions for this one? What's the next one?
The next one is 330 Bartlett Street.
Oh yeah, our favorite place. No, so Amazon. Love Amazon. I get lots of stuff from Amazon. My wife gets lots of stuff from Amazon. but it's not unusual for us to run into these types of incidences at that location. Now, an important thing, if people don't know what's going on at Amazon, Amazon doesn't own the trucks, they own the trailers. The trucks are all independent contractors, right? So that makes things super complicated sometimes. We'll get there, we'll have a leak, and we don't have a truck because the truck's left the site. Or we'll get there and we have the leak and we're like, okay, who owns this truck? And it's, sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to find. This had a trail of diesel from Cedar Hill at Cimarrano all the way up. That's a big area, okay? It's not that much. In other words, when you spill fuel, what happens? It really spreads out, right? It looks like there's a ton of it, but there isn't always that much. But this had a pretty good leak. When we got there, Clean Harbors was already on site. That should never happen. Your cleanup agent shouldn't be there before we're notified. We should be notified immediately. Call your cleanup agent. I agree with that. Get them notified. But if they're already there, how long has this been on the ground and what's been going on and where has it been going as everything drives through it, right? So please make sure that we're notified. The leak occurred at 2300 and wasn't reported until, do you have the time of the incident in here?
It was that shift change.
It was the next morning, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it had been on the ground for quite a while. Spill, so they estimated, now understand firefighters will do this and you guys probably will too. What's the RQ, what's the reportable quantity for diesel fuel? Do you know? It's 5 gallons, 10 gallons. What do you think they estimate this as? Firefighters do this all the time.
4.9.
Yeah, 4.9, 5 gallons. And so it was estimated about 10 gallons. So what do we have to do when we estimate it that way? We have to reach out to DEP and let them know we have a spill. And DEP normally says, okay, thanks. We'll make a note. It's not going into anything. It wasn't going into any it wasn't going into any water. It wasn't going into any brooks anywhere, so it wasn't a big deal. So with the amount of time, there was no puddles. We threw down, there was speedy dry already down. We simply documented what was going on with this one. And that's really important because what happens, you guys familiar with 21Es? So a 21E is when someone wants to do an environmental assessment. They send us a request, it goes to Mr. Parr, and we do a environmental assessment on an area. So let's say if somebody called in from 350 or called up and said, we're looking at buying this, this would be one of the records we would provide. Yes, there was a spill there. We get 21E requests for residential sites, for commercial sites, for all across the town, so it's not unusual. That's why it's important. If you have an incident, you report it. And I tell people this all the time. Doesn't mean you're going to get in trouble. You need to report it so we can document it, so we can have it in our records. So if somebody comes down later and says, hey, what's going on here? We have a residential area in town that there's a problem with one of their wells. And we've been going back and forth with them for a couple of years now, looking at previous spills. And was there a spill there? Was there a blasting there? What was there that could have caused this? We haven't been able to actually put our finger on something specifically. But that doesn't mean there wasn't a spill and we weren't notified. So it's really important that we're told for any spills. That was it. That was actually a pretty simple call. One thing we did do with this is we had to notify Marlboro Fire because the spill went into Marlboro. So once you start crossing town and city lines, it gets more complicated because now you have twice as many people involved, and spill could be bigger in Mark, still could be puddles in Marlboro, and it just gets super complicated. But this one was resolved fairly quickly by Captain McManus on scene. And some people have important phone calls. I understand.
So our permits since March, again, remaining pretty stable. 182 permits were issued, and they're essentially all renewals at facilities like your own. So there isn't anything that's a big surprise or new submission into the town here. And then, as the chief had mentioned, we still have the ability to get information out to everybody through the 21E site assessment process. We didn't have any in the last 6 months. We had a couple, I shouldn't say that, we had a couple people send in submissions and ask for information as kind of FOIA requests, so Freedom of Information Act requests. But then we passed them off to our process and our application, and the fee that's associated with doing a full deep dive as the 21E site assessment, and they never follow through after that with the rest of their requests.
Because they want it free.
They kind of want it free, and it's not as simple as just pulling one record and handing it off. It's an in-depth look at the actual property and the abutters surrounding it. So it's not as, it's a lot of man-hours put into them typically. So if we have one that's been done recently, we make that available. But if we don't have one that's done recently, then it is going to be like a 6-hour project to get that right.
Can you back up one slide for a
Yep.
second? So what I didn't mention, and many of you may have already seen, we have implemented an online portal to pay for your submissions now. So we went with a product, a company called Invoice Cloud. What it allows you to do is because we were having nothing but headaches, we know how much of a hassle it is for people sometimes to have to, we can only take cash or checks. Well, number one, I don't want your cash, thank you, or checks. It's a real headache. So we worked with our treasurer's office, and we have this new product called Invoice Cloud, which is the same product the town uses for dog licensing and a bunch of, Scott, do you guys use it at all? Yeah, now, there is a small fee, and they can only take credit cards or debit cards, but people have been using it like crazy already, so it's been very, very beneficial. So that's available to all of you. It's also available to pay for your Tier 2 submissions. So when you submit to Mike, Mike can direct you to that site, and you can go right into that site, click on it, and pay for your Tier 2 submissions that way as well, without having to go through the process of, we have to try and get a check drawn. And I know getting check drawn is crazy sometimes, a lot of work. So hopefully that helps you guys, helps a lot of you.
Yeah, I haven't had anybody submit their permits to that yet, but we're watching for it. So if you're waiting for me to send you your renewal notice and you want to do that, when we get into our conversation about the renewal, just say that you want to pay online, and we'll figure out how to get that done the first time, okay? I believe you need a permit number when you go to do it, so I can provide that for you so we track it right. Okay. We have talked about the hazard mitigation plan update several times in several other meetings. That's a process that's been in the works since 2023, I believe, and it is done. So if you hit the QR code here, you can see the whole plan. It's up on the website. And this will be incorporated by reference into our SEMP and the other plans that we have. Again, this is looking at natural hazards in the community, and by getting it approved by MEMA and FEMA, it opens up funding opportunities for us for different grants and on the initiatives that we've outlined in the plan. And today we were just going to touch on the SEMP. So this is something that we're in the process of updating now. And so looking at the Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan, just a brief overview, very high level of its purpose and what it does, and giving you a heads up that we're in the process of updating it. So we might be reaching out to your facilities for contact information and other things like that that we incorporate into the plan. Do you want anything to do with this? No? Okay.
Yeah.
So in terms of purpose, it's establishing a framework. So we have a coordinated emergency response through all the agencies in the Northborough response area. So we want to define our roles and responsibilities, make sure the organizational structure for local departments and partner organizations is defined before, during, and after an emergency. And it's guidance for integrating all those different resources and who's in charge, who's not in charge, how that should all flow. It's also putting something in that isn't going to conflict with state and federal plans and resources. So again, assigning the responsibilities is the big thing. You're going to have that org chart that indicates everybody in the town and all their different roles for that. Talk about methods and procedures used to designate personnel to assess for the emergencies and take appropriate actions to save lives, reduce injuries, prevent and minimize damage to the public and private property, and of course, protect the environment. We're going to provide a process by which emergency response personnel and local government staff can efficiently and effectively prevent and mitigate, prepare for, respond to, and recover from emergencies and disaster. And those pieces right there is really the cycle of this whole process. It has everything to do with the mitigation plan. It has everything to do with what we do every day with fire prevention, with the hazardous materials permitting. We're always trying to prevent and mitigate issues. I'm sure all of your action plans and your facilities have the same kind of process going on. So prevent, mitigation, and prepare for, and then if they do happen, what you do to respond during and how you recover from them. So you have the minimal amount of downtime and impact on your organization and the community. So we want to, again, it's more identification of responsibilities and lines of authority and coordination there. There's really two types of response scenarios that the SEMP would be pulled out for. So we have planned and anticipated activities, which Apple Fest could be an example of something that you would pull it out for to see how you're going to handle it. If you knew in advance that you had a major storm coming in, so we have a hurricane coming up the coast, we're expecting a nor'easter of significant ice and snow. That's an example of something you could pull it out for. But you can also have those immediate response incidents where you don't have that notice. So you could get a tornadic activity. You have the other activities listed here, like fires, hazardous incidents, where we don't have that notice of a few days to prepare for it, but it's something that is incorporated into the plan so that we can have a more smooth response. And here are those phases of the emergency management cycle. So again, the before is where all this work hopefully is happening, so that the during and after is smooth. So this meeting is part of the before. We're mitigating, we're preparing, we're informing community partners, trying to keep up to date on things. If something does happen, we have our response with our priorities on life and property, and then afterwards restoring and rebuilding after the emergency, and then that curls into the mitigation and the preparation, so that if we found out that we have a failure at a particular dam or a particular point in town, we can go to work on preparing that to be better prepared for the next time around.
Sure, I just thought of something as you're sitting there. One thing we are working on that I never anticipated working on when I became a fire chief or when I became a firefighter is working on cyber threats now. Okay, so we have a big plan that the town's working on, and the concern is what happens if we get a hostage type thing where they take over our data or they threaten to give it out. That falls under here, right? We were just talking about it in a recent tabletop that we participated in. So that's a whole nother animal that we're now having to incorporate in. First, we had to start bringing in terrorism because that was never thought. So that's an appendix. So now we're going to have an appendix on cyber threats and how we're going to deal with those. And the thing is, we're all so tied together now, right? A cyber threat for one of us is a cyber threat for all of us, right? If someone's accessing our site for something, for instance, all of our medical reports. If someone accesses our sites and can get into that, then they can get into the company that we work with for billing, potentially, right? So there's all these snowballing effects, and it's really scary. It's something that I hadn't thought of before, but when we sat through the tabletop the other day, I said, this is scary stuff. So it's another thing that we're looking at: mitigation, preparation, recovery, and response for all of those things. Bob?
Another example of that close to home is Littleton, the water department. Got hacked.
Yep.
And, there are some software programs out there where you can literally run the chemical administration and the pumping administration by a cell phone. So, cybersecurity is huge, and that is something that would affect the entire town.
Very much so. So that would require, and when we talked about this at the tabletop, that would be require for us to stand up. And let's say if it was one of your facilities, right? If you guys got hacked, you'd be the same thing. We'd have to stand up some kind of emergency operations center. We'd have to be looking at plans and how we're going to get there. You guys are not only looking at what you're going to do, but we're looking at what impact could be if they do release something or whatever they do. So it's super complicated, and just something to keep in mind that we're dealing with now.
So to go into a little more detail on these, we broke them down into the different categories. So your prevention and mitigation focuses. So this starts with enforcing is simply building codes and fire-resistant materials. That's like one simple example of what we do. Our inspections into all these different facilities that look for compliance with these things are part of the prevention process. Vaccination programs and all opportunities for the public to get vaccinated The flu vaccine every year that is offered, that's another example of this. Mitigation, we have creating fire breaks to reduce wildfire and spread, and installing backup power systems for critical facilities. So we had the big Mount Pisgah fire a couple of years ago, and we've had pretty good maintenance of the roads, right? But we found ways that we could make them even better during that, and that got thrown into this portion after the response to that fire. That got put into this portion of the plan to try and make sure that the access to that area is still maintained. So then you have the pre and the post-emergency mitigation, like I'm just saying, so limiting access to known flood zones. If something new comes up, we add that as add it to the list, and updating response plans based on the lessons learned from the disaster. So for preparedness, our town isn't going to be able to handle all these major emergencies on its own. So mutual aid agreements is an important thing. So having training, having equipment staged, having plans and tabletop exercises are all parts of this, but also those mutual aid agreements is another example of a way to improve preparedness in pre-emergency activities. So we want to make sure that we have the readiness along with the stockpiles. So we have the agreements, we have the people, but then the ability to access this stuff. And I know our MEMA partners are a great resource for getting all of that. So we make sure that we're familiar with how to request that information and those supplies. And then drills and after-action reviews. So Chief and the Deputy just recently talked about a tabletop that they did, identifying like that cyber threat. So hopefully when we do these things, we find these different things that we can add to the plan or improve our readiness for. And it's a kind of a non-stop ongoing process. So during response, we're trying to reduce the casualties, limit damage, get a speedy recovery. So you have the first response actions from the police, the fire, EMS, Public Works, other partners in the community, so the utilities partners that are going to be all involved with this. Getting information out to the public is going to be very important. So we have the reverse 911 systems that are available. You have social media announcements through Facebook. So those are all important to get out there ahead of time so people are signed up and on the list, but also to utilize them during incidents so that they see the value in it and the information and people take the right actions during the incident. Let's see, in Northborough, our response includes activating the SEMP and the EOC, so the Emergency Operations Center, coordinating with partners, managing resources, and preparing for recovery. So meeting the immediate needs and preparing for imminent needs. That's all done when you get the team together and you're in one place, a coordinated action. So it's not the fires taking response calls and then meeting the police on scene or the DPWs getting notified afterwards. They meet together in that Emergency Operations Center so that you can have that coordinated response and you're not duplicating actions.
It's also not out of the realm of possibilities we're calling you. We talked about just this the other day at another training we had. If I have a spill and I know it's something that one of your facilities is an expert at, guess who I'm calling? Right? Because I'm going to give you guys a call and say, hey, this is this. You guys have this in stock. I know it's not you transporting, it's somebody else, but we need some help. So it wouldn't be unusual if we would bring you into the EOC at that point looking for a material subject experts to say, hey, can you help us with that? So that's one of the other reasons we have all your tier 2, all your information's reported. We know, okay, who's an expert in this? Is it is it an ethylene oxide issue? Is it an alcohol issue? Is it what is the issue? Who are we going to reach out to? So if you get a phone call, come on in and help us. We'd appreciate it. So that's possible.
The last piece of this, which brings us right back to the beginning again, is the recovery aspect. So these are short and long-term efforts. Short meaning restoring power supply, clearing debris, restoring access to major routes. And the long term would be rebuilding efforts and actions to return to normal if there's some sort of major damage that is going to take that rebuilding aspect to it. And all of this depending on the state of emergency that happens in our community and then in the state, opens up different levels of funding from MEMA and FEMA to assist. So we may integrate mitigation measures to reduce future risks, beginning during or immediately after response activities. So updating, reinforcing, and upgrading areas of vulnerability. So the second we realize that, hey, we didn't have the greatest plan for this, or this is a new thing that's happening that we didn't think of before, it kind of gets added to the list. But like I said, we have a pretty extensive preparation history with the hazard mitigation plan and whatnot, where we think we've identified most of the things from past experiences and whatnot that we're pretty well prepared.
Do you all have COOP plans, continuity of operation plans? If you don't have a COOP plan, you should, because that's what you're going to need, right? Something happens and you say, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go? How can we stand up our operation somewhere else? Are we going to transfer it here? Are we going to transfer it there? That time is not the time to do it. All of our departments, every department within the town has a COOP plan. If something happens, what are we going to do? If you wait until it happens and then you say, what are we going to do? It's too late, right? It's too late at that point in time. So that's very important. If you need help with it, Mike can give you some guidance on how COOP plans are done, how we divide. We can give you some examples of different things. More than happy to help you out with that. And I'm sure that MEMA can help you out with that too, right, Kevin?
Kevin is an excellent resource, which, so we're updating this as we go, and it's, again, a lot of it is just updating for staff that's changed, incorporating references to new plans, so that's in process. As we reach out, we have infrastructure changes and such. We might be reaching out for more contact information and such from you folks as we go through it. Good, any comments or questions on that process? That was pretty high level, but.
No, but I'm going to throw the deputy, and I didn't tell him I was prepping him for this, but I'm going to tell him anyway. Come on, Deb, come here. Look at him, he's looking at me like, what are you doing to me? We are in the process, and you can speak to it as well, of planning for a tabletop for our nursing homes and our assisted living. You guys all know what happened in Fall River, right? Horrible thing. One thing that we have here, and our facilities are a little bit more modern. They have very good inspection programs. We walk through them quarterly. So every quarter we do a full inspection of them, looking at their sprinkler systems, looking at their alarm systems, looking at their housekeeping. We look at it all. But we can't necessarily plan for everything. So the deputy came up with the idea, and he's been working with the nursing homes and working with MEMA as well to do a tabletop for an incident at one of the facilities. And is there any way you can give a I know I didn't plan, or is there a way you can give like a 10,000-foot view of what we're looking at?
Maybe 30,000.
Okay. Can you do that for me?
Yeah.
I apologize for not prepping you, so. Well, not really, but.
All right. Hello. Is this working?
Yeah, it's on.
Oh, hello. All right. So yeah, a couple of things, all about emergency management. It's all about trying to practice. So when the day comes, you're not totally chaotic. You're going to be chaotic, but as much as you can identify. So following the Gabriel House in Fall River, where they had the multi-fatality fire, unfortunately, we through forth thinking, we reached out to our 2 facilities in town, had a round table meeting with a couple of facilities, building, and such, to see like where do they sit, and try to. We have a very good relationship with them anyway. On a daily basis, we do a lot of drills with them. We interact with them quite a bit. We do quarterly inspections, so it's not like we don't have a background with them. But we wanted to meet about this specific incident because it was such a high loss of life. It was one of the first, if not the first, multi-fatality in a sprinklered building in the United States, which is very unique. And as if you're following it, there was some issues with the sprinkler system, not to their fault, more manufacturing-wise. So we just wanted to meet and come up with stuff. And as we were sitting there, we said, what can we kind of do? We're always looking for events. And Kevin had mentioned, from MEMA, had mentioned in a previous meeting that they were looking at doing some exercises. The state resources can kind of plan. Our staffing is very limited to put the effort into designing and running an exercise, so to be able to have the state and resource that. So what we decided to do in working with them was to come up with an idea of something that would test their internal plans. And again, going to the chief's point about continuity of operations is they get an event at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Wednesday, management's there, people are there, they can handle it without an issue. 2 o'clock in the morning on 4th of July weekend, totally different story. Can you handle that same thing at that time? You know, so we're gonna roll in something to that. And the thing that you find in exercises is when they first, you know, years ago, it used to be that, you know, the space shuttle is gonna crash into your living room, and at the same point, the cybersecurity is gonna hit, and it was just ridiculous, and it's happening at 3 o'clock in the morning during a blizzard, right? And you didn't really get much out of it. So we're gonna make it more realistic, and, you know, you build on it. So we'll have a workshop prior to that kind of set us up on how to respond to it, and then do a tabletop that'll be a reasonable thing where, you know, they'll come up with some objectives. And so from the town side, the first part is we will decide what we want to test and what we want to see and accomplish. And then on the same point, they're going to kind of internally come up with what they want to meet as their objectives and test. And that's what it'll be designed around. It won't be designed on just whatever Kevin decides or the chief decides. It'll be on what the group actually wants to test realistically. And to see, you know, we have these plans. We talk about the SEMP and COOP and hazard mitigation. They're great plans, but, you know, when it comes time to actually implement it, are they useful plans? You can build a great plan, but if it doesn't work, and it's got to work with the boots on the ground. So we're going to design something with that, I think in the, when did we say, Kevin, in the February?
Yeah, early 26.
Early 26, we're going to do a tabletop. So we've already met with the facilities, kind of come up with their ideas, and we'll come up with a reasonable event to kind of just see about moving a special needs population during an event. Nothing significant like Gabriel House, hopefully. And I will say Gabriel House, just if anybody's going in their mind like, oh my goodness. So Gabriel House was originally a hotel. It wasn't designed for the use that it was used for, but it was transitioned into that, so it was allowed to be used, but it wasn't built specifically for housing special needs individuals. Whereas the two facilities in Northborough were specifically designed to house those. So their safety factors are built into that design. So they're in a pretty good thing, but you could get something as simple as a broken sprinkler pipe and the power goes out. That's an emergency. They got to move those populations. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but there's no heat, there's no water. They have to move them. So, and that takes a lot of logistics. So we're gonna do that and hopefully build up into either a functional or a full-scale exercise where we actually do actions. So we'll actually move people or actually do an event in real time, activate an EOC and do things along those lines. So there's a lot of background work that goes into it. So we'll do our best. We'll leverage Mike and Kevin, but I think it'll be good. It's good to come up with these, and even though this event will be focused on a facility, all of these are, you hear the term all hazards, which I think they're kind of getting rid of that term, but all hazards, which means all this stuff, 90% of it is interchangeable with any event, So it's kind of like you can relate it to like your bachelor's degree, right? No matter what track you take, 90% of it is core programs, and there's like 10% are specific to your core. So it's kind of the same thing. Anything is interchangeable. So whether we test on a rail car accident or a wildfire, all those things can interchange. So we can maximize that too. So look forward to that. I'm sure we'll keep. It's worthwhile probably keeping this group.
Yes.
In the mix. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. And even, I was sitting back there thinking, even that training, that prep training, we might put an invite out to see. Because again, all this cross-trained. So when we teach some of the incident command system things and whatnot, how that works, it's really good for you guys to kind of have an idea of how it works, because anything happens at your facilities. Or if we call you in to help, or if you're just kind of on the periphery and trying to figure out what's going on an event that we have. you'll understand how the structure actually works. It's a very good structure. It's built out of the wildfires, and they hit home runs all the time on their logistics. So look forward to that, and we'll move on.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, just, if you guys came to, if we were at a scene and I assigned you as the liaison officer at the Unified Command Post, would you understand what I was talking about? That's what the deputy is talking about. Because what happens is if I have an incident at your facility or involving your facility, one of you is going to be assigned as the liaison officer at the Unified Command Post, and you'll be going, what the heck does that mean? That means I'm relying on you to liaise back and forth and give the information to us and to the PD, so we all are operating off the same common operating platform, right? So that's the kind of stuff that we can provide you with, the education we can provide you with through some of this stuff. So that's great. You got anything else for that, Michael? No. Thank you, Deb. Didn't mean to, well, yeah, I didn't mean to throw you out.
So at this point, I'd open it up if there's any other business or incidents or questions that people have. Now's a great time to throw them out there.
Nothing?
Nothing else?
I will add.
Oh,
So-
Deputy has one.
No, it's not. I'm just thinking in my mind to kind of make these, so in a previous world, I was kind of in a position like Mike, and then we transitioned it more into an all hazards group, and started to do actual like little training scenarios and stuff. So, is that something you guys would be interested in? A couple of meetings, maybe we throw like a little training scenario in, like we do a little incident command overview, or, run a little small scenario on things, how to run. So, you kind of, we'll do our reviews, but also build in something that you can kind of get out of it and such, and we can come up with some ideas for that. Mike didn't know about that.
An ICS refresher would be nice.
Yeah, actually, you're going to get one pretty
It's been
soon.
a long time.
You're actually going to get one in December.
I was just-
So, surprise. So, but yeah, there's always things to learn. I think it makes it a little bit more interactive, value time a little bit more. And even you guys can come with things and say, hey, I'm thinking about this. Can you run this kind of scenario? So we can kind of look at expanding that too.
Yep.
Okay.
Or even if any facility here in particular wanted to share their plan someday, like this doesn't have to be us talking either. You're welcome to come up or reach out and talk to us, because I'm sure everyone could learn from each other the more they hear how they're doing it, and what they're offering in terms of training for their employees and what they have for standards in terms of their response plans. So if anybody's interested in kind of working with us in the spring meeting and would like to present on their plan so everybody can hear about it, please let me know and we can incorporate some of that as well. No other business, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Just make sure everybody signs.
Yeah.
So moved.
All right, we're going to adjourn. Please make sure, if you haven't already, to sign in on the sheet in the back. And again, this will be posted on the Northborough YouTube site, so you can share it with your company for review. And thank you for coming out today.